I still remember the night I told myself, Armin, love will fix everything. But I was wrong. Armin, you're late again, Mr. College said without looking up from his files. I forced a smile. Work was heavy today, sir. He finally looked at me. Work is always heavy for people who think emotionally. I nodded, but didn't reply. I already knew what he meant. Usman leaned on my desk later that evening. Bro, you're killing yourself for this job. I laughed. I'm building something for Alina. He smirked. Still on that confused queen topic? I frowned. Don't call her that. He raised his hands. All right. But tell me honestly, does she even give you clarity? She just needs time, I said quickly. Usman sighed. You've been saying that for 2 years. I didn't answer, because he was right, but I didn't want him to be. Later that night, I called Alina. Hey, I said softly. Her voice came tired. Armin, I'm busy. I leaned back in my chair. Busy again? Yes. Family stuff. I lowered my voice. Can we meet tomorrow? A pause. Then she said, I'll try. I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. That's enough for me. After the call ended, I whispered to myself, she's just confused. Usman walked past me. Still waiting for her answer? Yeah, I said. He laughed lightly. You're too patient, bro. I replied, patience is love. He shook his head. Or stupidity. I didn't respond. The next morning, Mr. Khalid called me. Armin, there's something you should monitor in the accounts section. I leaned forward. What happened? He slid a file toward me. Small inconsistencies. I don't trust them yet. I nodded. I'll check, he added. And Armin, don't trust anyone blindly. I forced a small laugh. I don't, sir. But I did. Especially 2 people. Alina and Usman. That evening, I left the office late. I passed the cafe near my apartment like I always did. Then I stopped walking. Because I saw her. Alina. Sitting near the window. Smiling. My chest tightened. I whispered, what is she doing here? She was holding her phone. Talking softly. And smiling in a way I had never earned. I took a step closer. My thoughts shook. That smile? I've never seen that smile for me. A waiter passed me. Sir, are you okay? I nodded quickly. Yeah, just saw someone. He walked away. I kept watching. Alina suddenly said, okay, I'll talk to you later. She ended the call. Then she looked up. Our eyes met. Her smile disappeared instantly. Armin, she said, standing up fast. You scared me. I forced calmness into my voice. Didn't know you were here. She adjusted her hair. I just came for coffee. I nodded. Who were you talking to? Her eyes flickered. No one important. I smiled slightly. You looked happy. She avoided my gaze. You're imagining things. I didn't push further. Instead, I said, I just left work. She replied quickly. You always work too much. I looked at her carefully. And you always seem busy. She froze for a second. I told you, family stuff. I nodded. Right? Silence fell between us. Then she said, I should go. Okay, I replied. She walked away without looking back. I stayed standing there. A man passed me and bumped my shoulder. Sorry, bro. I didn't answer. My mind kept replaying her smile. I whispered, that wasn't for me. That night, I didn't sleep. Usman texted me. Still alive or lost in love again? I stared at the message. Then replied, still trying. He sent back, trying won't save you. I put the phone down. I stared at the ceiling. And for the first time, I asked myself quietly, am I loving her or losing myself? I kept telling myself everything was normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. Armin, you look distracted, Usman said while leaning against my desk. I looked up. Am I? He smirked. Yeah, like your brain is somewhere else. I forced a small laugh. Maybe I'm just tired. Usman shrugged. Or maybe you're still stuck on Alina. I didn't answer immediately. Then I said, she's just busy lately. He chuckled. She's always busy lately. I frowned. What do you mean? He raised his hands. Nothing. Forget it. But I didn't forget it. Because he said it too easily. Later that evening, I texted Alina. I want to see you. No reply. I waited. Still nothing. I texted again. Just 10 minutes. Her reply came late. I'm busy. Don't overthink things, Armin. I stared at the screen. Don't overthink. I whispered it out loud like it was unfamiliar. My phone buzzed again. Usman, gym later? I replied, not today. He sent back. You're getting weird again. I locked my phone, and something in my chest felt heavier. The next day, Mr. Khalid called me into his office. "Sit down, Armin," he said firmly. "Saturday, what happened, sir?" He leaned forward. "We have a leak in the financial records." My fingers tightened. "Leak?" He nodded. "Money is moving where it shouldn't." I asked slowly, "Do you know who?" He paused, then said, "I suspect someone close to you." I felt my throat tighten. "Close like team members?" He looked at me directly. "Closer than that." I didn't speak, because I already had a name in my mind, but I refused to say it. That night, I stayed in the office longer. I opened the financial logs, scrolled slowly, and then I saw it. Usman Khan, repeated entries, strange transfers, unusual timestamps. I leaned back in my chair. "No, this can't be real," I whispered. I checked again. Same name. My hand started shaking. I muttered, "Why would Usman?" I closed the file instantly. My heart was beating too fast. I told myself, there must be a mistake. But my mind didn't agree. I called Alina. She picked up after a long delay. "Armin, I'm busy," she said immediately. "I just need a minute," I said. She sighed. "Make it quick." I asked, "Are you okay? You've been distant." She replied coldly, "I'm fine. You're just overthinking again." I clenched my jaw. "Everyone keeps saying that." She snapped, "Because you are." Silence. Then I said quietly, "Can we meet tomorrow?" "No," she answered fast. "I can't." "Why?" "Family issues." Her tone didn't change. No emotion. No warmth. Just distance. I whispered, "Okay." She ended the call. I stayed staring at my phone long after the screen went dark. The next morning, I confronted Usman. He was eating at the cafeteria. I sat across from him. He looked up. "Oh, Armin. Finally alive?" I didn't smile. "I need to ask you something." He chewed slowly. "Ask." I said, "Are you involved in anything at the company?" He froze for half a second, then laughed. "Seriously?" he said. "That's your question?" I didn't blink. "Answer it." He leaned back. "You really trust me that little?" I stared at him. "Just answer." He shook his head, still smiling. "Man, you're losing it." I stood up slowly. "So it's a no?" He nodded. "Of course it's a no." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, "All right," and I walked away. But my chest didn't settle. It got worse. Later that day, I was leaving the corridor when a voice stopped me. "Armin." I turned. A new colleague stood there. Nadia. She looked serious. "I need to talk to you," she said. I frowned. "About what?" She glanced around first. "Not here." We stepped aside. I asked again, "What is it?" She lowered her voice. "Be careful." I frowned deeper. "Careful about what?" She hesitated, then said, "Not everyone around you is what they look like." I stared at her. "Are you talking about someone specific?" She didn't answer. Instead, she said, "Just watch closely." I asked, "Why are you telling me this?" She looked at me directly. "Because I think you already know something is wrong." I didn't reply, because she was right, but I didn't want to accept it. She walked away, and I stayed there alone. My phone buzzed. "Alina, stop stressing me, Armin. I need space." I stared at the message, then whispered, "Space from me or the truth?" And for the first time, I felt something breaking inside me that I couldn't repair anymore. I kept telling myself I would stop digging, but I didn't. "Armin, you look like you haven't slept," Usman said while entering my workspace. I replied, "Maybe I didn't." He smirked. "Still thinking about Alina?" I looked at him. "Why does everything come back to her?" He shrugged. "Because she is your world." I didn't answer, because I was starting to doubt that. Later, I stayed back at the office after everyone left. Nadia walked past my desk. "Still working?" I said, "Yeah, just finishing something." She stopped. "You're looking into it, aren't you?" I froze slightly. "Looking into what?" She said quietly, "Don't lie to me." I leaned back. "I need answers." She nodded slowly. "Then be ready for them." I didn't respond, because I wasn't ready, not even close. That night, everything changed. Usman left his laptop open on his desk. He said, "Bro, grab me water from the machine." I stood up. "Sure." When I came back, he was gone. Just me and a laptop. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. I sat down and opened it. My heart was calm at first. Then I saw messages, unknown chats, and then a name. "Alina." I whispered no, I opened the conversation. One message hit me like a blade. Usman, don't worry, Alina. He still trusts us. My hands went cold. I whispered again, what is this? I scrolled further. Alina, I feel guilty sometimes. Usman, don't. He is blind to everything. I stood up fast. My chair moved back loudly. I said to myself, this is not real. But it was. Every line was real. Every word. My chest tightened. I closed the laptop instantly and walked out without looking back. That night, I didn't go home immediately. I stood outside Alina's building. I called her. She picked up. Armin, what is it? She said. I asked quietly, are you alone? She replied, why? I said, just answer me. She paused. Yes. I said, come outside. Silence. Then she said, okay. A few minutes later, she came down. She looked surprised. Why are you here this late? I didn't smile. We need to talk. She crossed her arms. About what now? I asked directly. Are you seeing someone else? Her eyes flickered. She said nothing. I repeated, Alina, tell me. She looked away, then whispered, Armin, I am confused. I closed my eyes briefly. That word again. Confused. I opened them. I asked, is it Usman? Her face changed slightly. Still silence. That silence was enough. I nodded slowly. I see. She stepped forward. It's not that simple. I said, it is for me. She grabbed my sleeve. Please don't make this worse. I gently removed her hand. I said, I'm not making anything worse. I'm just understanding it. She said quickly, I didn't plan this. I replied, no one ever does. She whispered, I was just lost. I looked at her, and I was just waiting. Her eyes filled slightly. Armin, I stepped back. You don't need to explain anymore. She said, please listen. I shook my head. I already heard enough. She whispered, it wasn't supposed to happen like this. I said softly, but it did. Silence fell between us. Then I turned away. She said, where are you going? I replied, home. She called again. Armin, please. I stopped but didn't turn back. I said, take care of yourself. And I walked away. That night something inside me broke. But I didn't let it show. The next morning, Mr. Khalid called me. Sit, he said firmly. I sat. He said, you look different. I replied, I feel different. He leaned forward. Tell me what you know. I said, Usman. He narrowed his eyes. Explain. I told him everything I had seen. The messages, the patterns, the fraud signals. He stayed silent for a long time. Then he said, this is bigger than I thought. I asked, what do we do now? He replied, we gather proof. I nodded. I can help. He said, I know you can. I stood up. He added, Armin, don't let emotions control this. I replied, I won't. But I already had. I just didn't admit it. At my desk, Usman walked in. He smiled. You left early last night. I looked at him. For a second, I saw nothing but a stranger. I said, yeah. He sat down. Everything okay? I replied, perfect. He laughed. You sound weird. I said, maybe I'm just clear now. He frowned slightly. Clear about what? I looked at him, then said, nothing important. He shrugged. All right then. He walked away. Nadia approached me quietly. You saw it, didn't you? She asked. I nodded once. She said, now you know. I replied, now I understand. She asked, what will you do? I looked at my screen. At files. At evidence. I said, I will wait. She frowned. Wait for what? I said, for everything to fall into place. She studied me. You're changing. I replied, I have to. She said softly, don't lose yourself. I answered, I already lost the old version. That night, I stayed late again. But this time I wasn't confused. I was watching, listening, collecting. And for the first time, I wasn't the one being broken. I was the one learning how it happened. I stopped waiting for answers. Now I started collecting them. Armin, come to my office, Mr. Khalid said over the intercom. I replied, on my way. When I entered, he didn't waste time. This is Rizwan, he said, our legal advisor. Rizwan looked at me. So you're the one digging into this mess? I said yes. He leaned back. You sure you want to go all the way with this? I answered instantly, I'm already in it. Mr. Khalid studied me. No hesitation? I said, no more hesitation. Rizwan nodded slowly. Good. Because once we start, there is no turning back. I said, I don't want to turn back. That was the first time I meant something completely. Later, Nadia came to my desk. You didn't go home again? She asked. I said, too much work. She frowned. Or, too much truth. I looked at her. Maybe both. She sat down. You're changing, Armin. I replied, I had to. She said softly, or you're becoming someone else. I said, maybe I'm becoming who I should have been. She stayed quiet for a second. You still okay inside? I said, I don't have time to not be okay. She nodded slowly. That's not an answer. I replied, it's the only one I have. Meanwhile, Usman started acting different. He walked into the office one morning and said loudly, big things coming soon. A coworker asked, what do you mean? He smiled, you'll see. I watched him but didn't react. Nadia whispered, he's getting confident. I said, or careless. She looked at me. Same thing sometimes. I didn't reply. That afternoon, I saw Alina outside the building. She stopped me. Armin, she said. I answered, I'm busy. She frowned. You're always busy now. I said, so are you. She stepped closer. We need to talk. I replied, about what? She hesitated. About us. I looked at her. There is no us left. Her face changed. Don't say that. I said, it's already said. She shook her head. You're different. I said, you made me that way. She whispered, I didn't mean for things to go like this. I replied, neither did I. Silence. Then she said quietly, I think I like someone else. I didn't ask who. I already knew. Instead, I said, then be honest with yourself. She looked down. It's not that simple. I said, it never is for the one who stays. She looked up quickly. Armin. I stepped back. I don't want explanations anymore. She said, please don't shut me out. I replied, I didn't shut you out. You walked out first. Her eyes filled slightly. I was confused. I said, that word doesn't protect you anymore. She went silent. I turned and walked away. That night, Rizwan called me. We have enough for a case, he said. I asked, are you sure? He replied, yes. Transfers, fake approvals, hidden accounts. It's clean evidence. I said, clean? He said, legally clean, morally dirty. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I said, then we wait. He asked for what? I replied, for the right moment. The next day, Usman walked into my space. He said, you're quiet these days. I looked at him, just focused. He laughed. On what? Life or revenge? I said calmly, on truth. He smirked. Truth is overrated. I replied, not when it catches you. He frowned slightly. You talking about something? I said no. He shrugged. Whatever you're doing, don't get lost in it. I said, I'm not the one who's lost. He stared at me for a second, then walked away. Nadia came later. She said, he's getting too confident. I replied, let him. She asked what? I said, because people talk more when they think they've won. She studied me. You planned this. I answered, I'm learning it. She said quietly, you've become cold. I replied, cold doesn't break easily. She said, but it also doesn't feel anything. I looked at her. That's the point. She didn't respond. At night, I stayed in the office alone. Rizwan sent documents. Mr. Khalid texted, we move soon. I replied, understood. I opened the files again. Names. Transactions. Proof. I whispered. Everything is connected. My phone buzzed. Alina, can we meet one last time? I stared at the message, then replied. There is no last time left. She texted again. You've changed. I typed no. I stopped pretending, and I didn't send anything else. Usman walked past my desk late evening. He said, still here? I replied, always. He smiled. You're obsessed with this now. I said no. I'm done being blind. He paused. Whatever you think you know, you're wrong. I looked at him and said, we'll see. He walked away. Nadia stood near the door. She said softly, you're ready, aren't you? I closed the file and replied, I've been ready since the day I stopped lying to myself. She asked, what happens next? I said, everything they try to hide comes out. She whispered, and after that? I looked at the empty office and said, after that, nothing stays the same. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what was coming. I was waiting for it. The office felt too quiet that morning. Armin, come to the conference room now, Mr. College said through the intercom. I replied, I'm coming. Nadia looked at me from her desk. It's happening. I say yes. She stood up. Are you ready for this? I answered, I've been ready longer than I wanted. We walked together. She said softly, just don't react emotionally. I replied, I stopped reacting a long time ago. Inside the conference room, everything felt frozen. Mr. Khalid stood at the front. Rizwan was beside him. Usman was already sitting in the front row. He looked relaxed. He smiled at me. Big day, he whispered. I replied, you could say that. He laughed. You always look serious lately. I said nothing. Alina wasn't there yet. Mr. Khalid cleared his throat. Let's begin, he said. Rizwan opened the file. Financial discrepancies have been confirmed, he said. Murmurs started in the room. Usman leaned back. This is dramatic for nothing. I stayed silent. Rizwan continued. Multiple unauthorized transfers. Fake approvals. Internal manipulation. Usman laughed. Are we accusing ghosts now? Mr. Khalid said, not ghosts. People in this room. Silence dropped. Usman's smile faded slightly. He said, are you serious? Rizwan turned the screen. Names appeared. Accounts. Transactions. And then Usman's name. The room went still. I watched him carefully. His eyes moved fast. He whispered, what is this? Mr. Khalid said, this is evidence. Usman stood up quickly. This is fake. I finally spoke. Is it? He turned to me. Armin, you know me. I replied, I used to think I did. He stepped closer. You planned this. I said no. I just stopped ignoring it. His voice rose. You betrayed me. I looked at him. No, you did that yourself. Security walked in. Usman froze. Wait, this is a misunderstanding. Rizwan said calmly, it's not. Usman looked at me again. Tell them they're wrong. I said quietly, I'm done lying for you. His face changed. For the first time, he didn't smile. Security took him. He looked back once and said, you think you won? I replied, I think you finally lost. Then he was gone. The room stayed silent. Mr. Khalid closed the file. It's over. I didn't feel anything at first. Just empty calm. Nadia touched my shoulder lightly. You okay? I said, strangely, yes. She nodded. That's new. I replied, so is everything else. That evening, I walked outside the building alone. Alina was waiting near the gate. She saw me and stepped forward fast. Armin, she said. I stopped. Don't. She froze. Please listen to me. I said, I already heard enough in my life. Her eyes were red. I made a mistake. I replied, you made a choice. She shook her head. It wasn't clear. I said it was clear. You just didn't want to see it. She stepped closer. I didn't know it would end like this. I said, it always ends like this when truth shows up. Her voice broke. I lost everything. I replied, no. You lost what you ignored. She whispered, I miss you. I looked at her. No anger. No softness. Just truth. I said, you miss comfort, not me. She shook her head. That's not fair. I replied, neither was what happened. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. No, I said quietly. She froze. Please, she whispered. I said, I'm not the same person who waited anymore. Her voice cracked. Can we start again? I shook my head. There is no again for me. She broke down crying, but I stayed still. I'm sorry, she said repeatedly. I nodded once. I know. Then I turned away. She called after me. Armin. I didn't stop. Nadia was waiting at the corner. She asked, done? I said, yes. We started walking. She said softly, you didn't even look back. I replied, there was nothing there for me anymore. She stayed quiet for a moment, then asked, do you feel better? I thought about it, then said, not better, just free. She smiled slightly. That's enough. We kept walking. She said, what now? I looked ahead and replied, now I build something where I don't lose myself again. She nodded. I'll stay with you on that. I said, I know. Behind us, everything I once knew was ending. But inside me, something new was finally starting. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't surviving pain. I was choosing peace.